So Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick for his Secretary of State in his second term, seems to be the second sinking ship of these list of controversial cabinet picks that Trump has put forward. And it seems like Hegseth is a man who is incapable in his lifetime of avoiding controversy, particularly when it comes to his relationship with women in his life. And it seems that just week after week, and even within the last 48 hours, we are seeing accusation after accusation of Hegseth's wrongdoing when it comes to women in his life. And I'm going to try my best to break down the sheer scale of the accusations that we're looking at in this video. So before we get into that, Gates, as Attorney General, was the first candidate to really crash out. I mean, the Senate Republicans met with him, and it became very quickly very apparent that he was not going to get confirmed if he was put up as a nominee for Attorney General, and he was gone. And it seems that all of these stories and accusations that are coming to light are even more reason for the Senate Republicans to use what strength they have to make sure that Hegseth does not become the Secretary of Defense. Now, the first issue that anyone has, including Senate Republicans, is whether or not this man is qualified. Look, I'm not going to speak on his military experience. I mean, he served in the National Guard for years. He has served overseas. He has a very long military career, and he was the rank of major, but it is a whole different video to discuss whether or not that makes you qualified to be Secretary of Defense. But it seems that these cabinet picks just cannot stay away from controversy at any point in their lives. Now, the first concern that relates to controversy and nothing about qualifications is just that Hegseth's character, I think, is very justifiably one of concern. The man has had 2 divorces in his time, and both of them have been because of infidelity. He has had 2 previous marriages to his current one, and both of them ended when he slept with another woman. Now, that is not a crime. There's nothing illegal about the way that he conducted himself in his marriages. But the party of family values being forced to swallow the pill of voting for the guy who has torn apart 2 families in his time is a little bit hypocritical to look at. Now, Pete Hegseth can do whatever he wants in his free time. It's up to him. But you can understand why performative conservative Republicans in the Senate who want to make this show of being about family values might not want to vote for the man who's the physical embodiment of the act of adultery. But of course, people can look past that. But then things start to get serious when we look at other accusations against him. Probably the one that is going to get the most attention is the fact that in 2017, there was an investigation and allegation that Hegseth sexually assaulted a woman at the Republican Women's Conference in California. The allegation, which has not been proven, is that Hegseth refused to let someone leave his hotel room until that person slept with him under duress. That is an allegation. We do have facts. The fact that we do have is that Hegseth has been paying an individual since that time, and his lawyer is claiming that allegedly he is being blackmailed by the individual making these allegations and that he's done nothing wrong. So you can interpret that either way you want. Hegseth's claim is that he is being blackmailed by this individual that he allegedly sexually assaulted, and that he's just trying to keep this quiet. And the other interpretation of that is that he did do this and he's paying someone to keep them quiet. Now, that allegation is not evidence. It hasn't been proven in court. So he's not going to go to prison for this unless some investigation kicks off. But what it is a sign of damage to the reputation that Trump is trying to maintain with Republican senators, because they've already proven enough controversy with Matt Gaetz gave them all the reason to veto his decision to make Matt Gaetz Attorney General. And where they've already proven that they're willing to say no to controversial picks, you don't want a reputation spinning around them like what is currently hanging over Hegseth's head. This ties into the second controversy, if you can call it that. What this really is this second piece is basically, in the court of public opinion, going to be interpreted as evidence, but is really just private correspondence that we have come across. So the New York Times found a private email between Hegseth and his mother during his divorce proceedings from his second wife, and it is basically a list of complaints that Hegseth's mother is throwing against him, saying that he has a incredibly toxic pattern of behavior, in her own words, of abusing the many women in his life. His mother then kind of goes on to explain that she thinks that he really needs professional help to try and change the way that he deals with women in his life. And look, His mother, when she was contacted about this in like just the last few days, basically retracted the whole thing and said that, oh, I did it out of anger, it was a mistake, blah, 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 which I think we could understand if it was irrational, ranting, and crazy, but she outright accuses the man specifically of something, which is a long list of women in his life that he has abused. In her words, the many women, not specifically just his wives, that he had abused throughout his lifetime. If you want to present a solid character and being someone worthwhile to the United States Senate, you don't want the woman who raised you saying that you need professional help because of how ritualistically you abuse the women in your life. Now, the final controversy of the big three, if you'll call them that has really been ramped up, is that Hegseth was the publisher of a conservative magazine while he was going to university. And that university published an article that had a very interesting perspective on consent. Now, Hegseth did not write this article, but he did publish it as the paper's publisher. It was basically an article that was lamenting the fact, back in 2002, that people had to sit through instructionary videos that explained to them what was and wasn't consent and what was okay to do on campus. And it was complaining about a particular instance where a woman was unconscious and therefore she could not consent to sex. And basically, the article complained about the fact that if you slept with someone when they had passed out, that was okay because the person wasn't going to be able to say no. Again, Hegseth did not make that argument, but he did publish that as the publisher of that newspaper, an article saying that it's okay to sleep with people if they're asleep or unconscious because they can't say no. Now, look, we've all made mistakes at school and in our younger years and into university as young adults, but I don't think I've ever published an article that argued that you don't need consent to have sex with somebody. Look, these are all allegations, but I think there's a reason for him to be concerned. Because in the public perception of him, what they see is a man who's trying to become the Secretary of Defense, who has an allegation of sexual assault against him. A man who has published articles that have very concerning perspectives on what consent is. A man who was cheated on 2 previous wives, and a man whose mother has accused him of a pattern of behavior of abusing women. A man who wants to become Secretary of Defense. A man who has said publicly that he doesn't think that women should be able to serve in combat roles in the United States military. Now, if you're a Republican senator, do you want to give that man and his reputation a big old seal of approval?